Yes, this is DJ Ski.
I'm Jeff Wilson.
Hey guys, Andy Broom, Vice President of CGC Cards.
Hey, this is Jason Howarth with Panini.
Yo, I'm Q Harrison.
Hey gang, this is Tom Verrilli. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Whatnot.
This is Teapot from Sports Card Investor.
This is Adam Rips with VFriends.
What's up? This is Aaron from Slab Stocks.
Hey, this is Clark from 5 Card Guys and the Cards to the Moon podcast.
Hey guys, this is Jay with Wild Card.
What's up everyone? This is Duke Dodson from Graybows.
What's up everybody? This is Chris Kelsey from Nash Cards.
What's up everyone? This is Mark Hill from My Card Post.
This is Ray Schulte.
This is Chase Krim.
This is Cody from Texas Roadshow Shop.
This is Mark Aaron from WSB Radio in Atlanta, and you're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show.
I'm loving the content.
Loving the content here.
I'm loving the content here on the Sports Card Strategy Show.
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 And I'm telling you, the Sports Card Strategy Show.
This is the Sports Card Strategy Show with your man, Paul Hickey. What's good?
Be sure to subscribe for year-round advice on keeping your portfolio up to date.
Part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, the #1 place for advice on how to make money flipping sports cards. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there is no off-season.
There is no off-season.
There is no off-season.
And there's no off-season.
You already know, there is no off-season.
No off-season!
All right, you ready to rock?
Ready to go.
When you get into this game, the reason why you pay someone like Paul Hickey to get your sports card strategy together is because sometimes when you're starting out, you need perspective, you need wisdom, you need insights. And so he's been around the track enough times where he can actually coach you up and guide you. Doesn't mean he's going to take you to the promised land tomorrow, but you now have a coach by your side that can advise and kind of even create these pathways where you can get the education yourself. And that's a lot better than thugging it out on your own. Thugging it out on your own.
What? The kids better buy my rookie card now. Cause after this year, the price ain't coming down.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Paul Hickey. It's time to sit back, listen, learn, and earn with me on the Sports Card Strategy Show. What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday, December 18th. Whether you're getting this on the podcast apps on Apple and Spotify, whether you're getting this at youtube.com/Paul Hickey or on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. Everybody, on today's show, we are going to talk, of course, about how to make money flipping sports cards. We are the #1 place to help you make money flipping sports cards. Specifically, how to make money on Bowman Draft. Bowman Draft 2024 baseball just hit the market a couple of weeks ago. And I talk with Clark Kim of Cards to the Moon podcast and 5 Card Guys on Instagram. We dive into some serious sports card strategy about how to make money on Bowman Draft. But first, I want to talk to you guys about a few newsworthy items. Prizm Football 2024 is out. I had a Michael Jordan card that I ordered on eBay that did not pass inspection. I'll talk about what that means, what to look out for when you're buying raw cards on eBay. New selling markers. The Bucks won the NBA Cup. Is this a selling marker for Giannis? And is this a selling marker moving forward? We've talked about this a little bit on the Sports Card Strategy Show. NBA Cup. Is it an actual selling marker for the player who wins the MVP? Travis Hunter won the Heisman. Is that a selling marker? Our guy, Travis Hunter, you're welcome to all of you in the NoOffSeason.com fam who followed our Travis Hunter plays over the last 12 to 18 months. He won the Heisman. Is this a selling marker? We'll preview next Monday's episode, where the theme of it is NoOffSeason.com success stories from you, the members of NoOffSeason.com. Okay? Now, first, are you ready to start grading your cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today. Remember, if you're a premium member of NoOffSeason.com, you can ask the grader. That is a great value to premium members of NoOffSeason.com. Also, we've got our Black Friday, Cyber Monday pricing all the way through the end of this calendar year. So get your low pricing. If you haven't got your free 30-day trial yet over at nooffseason.com, you get low pricing, discounted pricing through the end of the year through 12/31. That's New Year's Eve is the last day for that pricing. So go get it right now. All right. First, I made an order for a Michael Jordan card on eBay. I may or may not have actually hit on this exact thing in a previous Sports Card Strategy Show episode. I know I alluded to it, but when you buy a card on eBay for over $250, you are protected by the eBay authenticity guarantee. I was the only bid on this ridiculously beat up looking 1986 star Michael Jordan card number 10. The Future is what it's called. And I was the only bid. I won the card for $289. I thought, you know what? This is going to get a PSA 1. And I'm totally fine with that because this card, even in a PSA 1, would make me a lot of money, just about $310 into the card. However, I received a notification just before the show aired. You got a refund, a total of $293.37, which is the total that I paid after shipping, was sent on December 18th, 2024, which is right now as I'm recording this episode. Reason being, item's authenticity can't be verified. The item is being returned to the seller. So this is very notable because if I would have paid, and the reason why I bid on this card at $289 was because it's covered by the eBay authenticity guarantee program. If this would have been at $249, I probably wouldn't have bid on it because I'd be SOL. And I would have sent this card into PSA and it would have come back questionable authenticity, do not holder, and I would have been SOL. My play was to get this graded at PSA, get a PSA 1, sell it for like $600, maybe even $1,000, honestly. Now, the seller has already messaged me and apologized, saying that they did not know that this was a fake. They bought it off of an auction house. Not my problem. Not my problem. I mean, do I feel bad for the seller? I guess. But I mean, what I want all of you to know from this is be very, very careful when buying cards that are under $250 on eBay that are raw, because you're not covered in the eBay authenticity guarantee program. I didn't have to do anything. The seller mailed this card to the eBay authenticators. eBay authenticators said, nope, not authentic. It's a fake. They said, here's your money back, Paul, and here's your card back, seller. Sorry, but we're not going to pay you out for this card. So saved by the authenticity guarantee program. I will say that. Now, Prizm Football 2024 is out now. Many of you probably saw the Brock Bowers 1/1 already got pulled. There was some controversy over that, which I think is stupid. Who cares if it's pulled before the release? I mean, the release date means nothing for any of these cards. First of all, the release date always gets moved back. It always gets pushed back due to production issues. The card manufacturers are not trustworthy anymore. We know that they give allocation to breakers early. We know that they pre-sell cards on their websites early. We know certain people in the hobby get cards before others. And we know the little guy gets it last. So who cares if some breaker broke Prism hobby boxes from 2024 football before anybody else? And who cares if the Brock Bowers 1/1 was pulled early? Like, big deal. I mean, anyway, hello in the live chat to Terry Anderson, George Schur, and Michael Tamleone. Good to see you. And the takeaway for people with 2024 Panini Prizm Football is don't go buy this hobby box. The takeaway is this is your last chance to get rid of any other earlier rookie cards from, say, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, etc. Michael Penix Jr. has been named the starter of the Atlanta Falcons. Now is a great time to get rid of Michael Penix Jr. rookie cards that aren't from this release. I mean, and if by some chance you are dumb and rip this release, sell everything right away. Because prices are going to go down throughout the rest of the year for this release. Prices are going to go down for the previous releases, like the Score Retreat, the Panini Instant stuff, the Topps Now stuff, the Don Russ stuff. Anything that came out before Prism is going to plummet down. Get rid of it now, okay? So that's my takeaway. Prizm Football 2024 is out now. Sell your 2024 rookies. We're going to talk probably in late 2025, about a year from now, about which cards, which singles to buy out of this release, 2024 Prizm Football. It is not the time just yet. All right, so now let's go to new selling markers. NBA Cup winner, Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of my favorite players of all time, by the way. Just won the Emirates NBA Cup last night, won the MVP award. No sales really recorded just yet by market movers. So, you know, nothing huge to report on there. If we go to eBay, maybe market movers hasn't necessarily picked up on any of the sales. If we go to eBay, sort into the sold listings for Giannis Antetokounmpo, his name, and we do price and shipping highest first. Actually, you know what? Let's go ended recently. Ended recently. So if we go ended recently, today, as I'm recording this, is Wednesday, December 18th. I'm not seeing a lot of sales. There's literally like 5 Giannis card sales that ended today. And the card that is up the most for him is his 2013 gold standard rookie jersey autographs in BGS 9.5. The last sale was Monday. So it has nothing to do with the Emirates Cup. And it's up only $212. Then there's only 3 other Giannis cards that are up more than $7. So for Giannis in this MVP award of the Emirates NBA Cup, Bucks winning it means nothing so far for his sports card value. Now, could we potentially see a rise in his prices? Sure, maybe. But usually that rise happens within 24 hours of the performance spike. And we're about 12 hours in, maybe 20 hours in, and we haven't seen it yet. So not happening so far for Giannis. Now, the other selling marker I wanted to talk about, Travis Hunter winning the Heisman. Travis Hunter wins the Heisman last week. A lot of news coverage about it. You're welcome, for those of you who followed our formula-based sports card rankings at nooffseason.com and just our recommendations even before we had our rankings. But Travis Hunter's been huge in our raw to grade rankings. A lot of people have made a lot of money on him, and you should probably sell his cards now. Text sports cards to 1-833-992-5727 to get on our email list. Our email list definitely puts you in a position where you can be first to the knowledge, so to speak, at nooffseason.com. But Travis Hunter, 2023 Bowman Chrome University Prospects Purple Refractor out of $399. PSA 10 is up $109. His X-Fractor Raw out of the same release, Bowman Chrome University First Prospects X-Fractor up $18. His 2023 Bowman Chrome University Sapphire Edition base Raw is up $20. And even his Refractor PSA 10 is up $31 out of that release. His Prospect Auto in SGC 10, 2023 Bowman Chrome University First Prospect Auto in an SGC 10 is up $86. His First Prospect Auto, same card in a PSA 10 is up $75. His First Prospect Auto Raw is up $55. The X Fractor that I talked about in PSA 10 is up $24. I mean, a lot of Travis Hunter cards are up. Even in PSA 8, his Bowman Chrome Prospects first in PSA 8 is up $10, and in PSA 9 is up $10. So this is a huge selling marker for Travis Hunter. I would consider selling if you've gotten into him and now you are making, a profit off of his cards based on where you bought in. Certainly if you followed our raw to grade plays from the formula, you're making a lot of money. So now's a great time to sell Travis Hunter. One thing I want to talk about real quick, success stories from premium members of nooffseason.com. We talk a lot about our success stories on the Sports Card Strategy Show. Sometimes we give some live chat love. What we don't do enough of is going back and highlighting our premium members at nooffseason.com and their success stories. And so Monday's episode is going to be somewhat dedicated to this. And we're also going to have some year in review data, card data, 2024 year in review. That's going to be a little bit different than the episode I did on what worked best in 2024 from about a month or so ago. But mainly Monday's episode is going to be talking about success stories from nooffseason.com premium members. If you're on the premium member only Discord, drop your success stories in the success story channel and it'll probably make it on the show. But a couple of good ones here that I wanted to go over from our guy. Let's see, who are we doing here? Let's do Terry. Terry's in the house right now. Terry bought 40 of the Panini Instant Caitlin Clark 100 cards, pre-sold 9, and submitted the best 31 to PSA. He got 28 10s back and 3 9s. Now they're at PSA, and he's doing very well on those. Let's see. I had these all queued up, and now all of a sudden, my links are taking me to a different place on Discord. So give me just 1 second here, everyone. Okay, Robert L. Robert L. is also who I wanted to highlight. He did the Cooper flag play, and he got his Cooper flag cards back from PSA, and he got all 10s. Now he bought, it looks like he bought 5 of these, and he got back all 10s, and he wish he bought more. So Robert, good work. And then we have, let's see, Bo R had a good one. Bo R says, my Travis Hunter Bowman First Refractor Auto PSA 10 sold for $810 tonight. That was the night Travis won the Heisman. He was into it for $90 plus grading, so that's $110. Held onto it for 11 months. Timing a 10-day auction to end an hour after the Heisman ceremony worked very well. Bo, great work. Bo obviously has been a premium member at nooffseason.com for a long time. He is cashing in on the Travis Hunter play that we told everybody about back about 12 to 18 months ago. Ryan Painter in the house. What's up, my man? Good to see you. Just in time for me to talk to Clark Kim of Cards to the Moon and 5 Card Guys. Let's get into how to make money on Bowman Draft Baseball. Let's go. All right, everybody. Welcoming in now my guy, Clark Kim from Cards to the Moon podcast and 5 Card Guys on Instagram. Clark is very knowledgeable related to baseball, and we've had the biggest release really annually for baseball card people and prospectors, Bowman Draft. So Bowman Draft Baseball 2024, obviously just hitting the market in the last couple of weeks, and a lot going on with that. So Clark and I are going to focus today's discussion on how to make money on Bowman Draft. Clark, first of all, how's it going, man? How's life? How's collecting, and how's the hobby?
I'm just getting ready for Christmas. As we're recording, it's just a week out. So, I'm hoping that I'll get some cards from my loved ones so I can rip wax over the holidays. But yeah, no, everything's kind of, we're just talking off air. It's just getting busier. I got to finish off my Christmas list right after this. So yeah, it's fun though. I love this time of year.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Well, it's cool. I know a lot of hobbyists that like to get wax for the holidays or for their birthdays or something like that, and then kind of treat themselves to rip and wax. And dude, I get it. I think it's fun, but I also hate it. I hate ripping wax.
Okay.
I don't do it. So for you Cards to the Moon listeners, I apologize for being like the Scrooge bah humbug to ripping wax. But look, here's the deal, man. I do it maybe once a year, maybe twice a year.
Okay.
And every time I do it, I hate it. I don't get anything.
Yes.
And then I have all these commons and these cards that I don't. I ripped a box of Bowman Draft 2024 because I need to, as much as I am on my soapbox of ripping wax is not a sports card strategy.
Right.
I need to check myself every once in a while, right?
Sure.
Because maybe it is. And actually, I want to turn things over to you real quick because I select Bowman Draft as one of the releases that I consider ripping every year. And I ripped a box recently of 2024 Bowman Draft.
Yep.
A hobby box. And the reason why is because, you've got essentially a checklist built around the actual MLB draft. Now, obviously not every draft pick is in it, but you've got a checklist built around the MLB draft. This is the first Bowman for those guys.
Yep.
And the guys who are on the checklist. Again, not everybody. And the first Bowman typically is a card that for flippers like me will hold value until the guy gets to the major league. So to rip a box, I think gives you a better chance ripping this release of getting something valuable and maybe piecing together your money back and still having fun in the process. So maybe just kind of from your perspective, talk about Bowman Draft as a release. Like, am I making for someone who doesn't rip wax and doesn't like ripping wax? Am I picking a good release to at least test my theory on?
Yeah. Can I be honest? I don't think so. Because
it's good. I will definitely let me know what's up.
Because I wish Hyung was on this episode because he's my co-host on Cards to the Moon, and he was a pro baseball player in the minors, and so he kind of has a unique perspective in that sense, like the realities of prospecting and you mentioned it might be a good time to pick up prospects and potential rookies and hold their cards until they make it to the leagues. The actual question should be if they make it to the major leagues, right? Because a lot of these guys actually don't end up making it, and that's part of the risk, and that's part of the fun for some people to see. I'm gonna root for this guy while he's going through the single, double, AAA minor league system. So it is fun, but the upside is huge, potentially huge, because some of these guys are studs even as teenagers or in their early 20s. And if you're going to wait till they actually make it to the big leagues, you're already probably looking at paying thousands of dollars for their lower numbered parallel cards, right? So in a sense, when you're ripping, like any wax product, you're hoping to get the hit. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this in a bit, but the ROI is usually miserable, right? In terms of what you actually hit. And the thing with prospecting too is that there's so many guys on that checklist, and you just don't know which one will actually make it, A, and then B, they'll actually be really good at that major league level if they do get called up. So a lot of ifs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's good. That's great perspective. And I think when you look at the early sales from this release of singles, you do see you have I say this guy's last name, and I know I'm saying it wrong, but I just like to have fun with it. You see a Jack Caglianone
Caglione, yes.
Caglione. You see a red lava refractor out of 5 auto go on a best offer accepted on December 16th for $12,500.
I saw that.
You know, you see, like you talk about, you know, those kinds of reaching for the hits. You know, you see a Travis Bazzana red refractor auto, serial number to 1 out of 5.
Huge
go card. in a buy it now for $13,999.99, which is like a joke. When when someone lists something with the $999.99, it's
right.
There's no way I'm gonna get this for this card, but I'm gonna throw it up there anyway. Somebody pinned that. Same thing with the Bazzana, and these are all sales like between December 14th through December 16th. So the Bazzana 1 out of 10 black refractor auto, $10,999, and like so you see. And then there's some Caglianone, other like red refractor variation when he's within the Florida uniform. Now these are out of 5, no auto, but they're going for $9,400 and $9,900. This is U.S. pricing, but anyway, point being, it's like I think for the new people coming into the hobby who don't really know yet the examples of why we're saying what we're saying. Basically, I think that people get enticed and seduced a little bit by these types of sales. Yeah. And they think, okay, well, let me try to win the lottery. And the reality is that the chances of hitting these cards are probably, in some cases, worse than the chances of winning the actual lottery. Right. And so I want to get into how can you actually strategically make money when a release like this comes out. And I pulled some data, so I have some things to talk about. But before I dig into what I like to teach people at nooffseason.com, we have Sports Card School, we have the Premium Podcast, we have Sports Card Rankings at nooffseason.com. And we like to teach people how they can use releases like this to actually strategically make money. Nice. So I want to get into some of that and throw some of those ideas past you as well. Yeah. But how do you? So I like that you and Hyung sort of think about this release as a fade, because I do as well. I think when this release comes out, it strikes me as, yes, it's exciting. Yes, I want to rip it, but I hate ripping wax, and I need to dial down the level of excitement a little bit. Be strategic about this. Maybe look at better opportunities. How do you guys think about how to make money on this release?
Yeah, I mean, some people are not going to like to hear this, but as the price of wax just keeps going up, and that's another issue, right? Like, it's what I think I checked on David Adams, it was like $500-600, and they used to be.
I paid $530 or something like that.
Right. Okay. Right on. Yeah. So I mean, they used to be $200-300, and now it's, now you're paying double, and you're still hoping for like these hits that, it's really hard to hit, right? So there's more investment in it, and which makes the ROI even that much tougher. But the other option really is breaks. Like, I know people don't like to do it, but if you're really wanting the hits, maybe it's, it's still a gamble, obviously, with breaks as well. But at least you're, going after the players that you want. So you're picking the KC Royals for Jack Caglione, right? And the Guardians for Travis Bazzana. Yeah, and the other thing I'll add too with prospecting is, even if you do get these hits, and maybe you'll get into this a bit, but we were talking about it on our podcast just last week. It's a sell right away. It's like buying a new car, and once it goes off the lot, it starts depreciating very quickly. You're at the peak in terms of price for most of these prospects because everyone is paying for the potential, not the actual stats or the potential. So everyone thinks Jack Caglione's going to be the next Shohei Ohtani because he could pitch and bat, but the likelihood of that happening is probably rare. Like, Shohei is a unicorn in that way, and it's awesome to see more players be two-way players, and Jack Caglione definitely has the power and the potential to do it. But yeah, baseball's a hard game, and I think there's going to be a lot of adjustments from these young guys too. So if you're looking to get one of these top rookies, a lot of the times you want to wait. There's always an adjustment period. We call it the adjustment period, right when they get called up and then kind of going into their second season. Then you usually see a dip, and then maybe you pick up singles that way. It's a lot more boring to do it that way, but easier on the wallet usually.
I want to get into that because I totally agree with you, and that's exactly what we teach people to do at nooffseason.com. So I want to get into that, and you and I can have a discussion and kind of hit home for the audience why that's what everybody should be doing. But you brought up a couple of really good things that I want to talk about first. One is basically like selling these cards right away. Like if you do rip or if you do buy into breaks, regardless of what you get, you should list them right away and sell them. Because really the way to try to piece together your profit potentially from this, or at least piece back together what you paid for the box or what you paid for the break, is to try to be first to the market with these cards on eBay. Because historical data, if you were to go back to, say, 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, which we'll do in a minute, like you'll see that the prices just plummet huge after the initial release. And also, like, even if you want to try to be first to the market with a graded version, say at PSA, to try to get a PSA 10 of maybe like a lower level card, like let's say you pull a Caglione Refractor, you want to be first to the market with that, get it to PSA. You don't necessarily need to do like anything other than a value submission, but when you get it back in those 30 to 50 days, get it listed, because typically even your PSA 10 pricing goes down after this release. You know, you'd be first to the market probably in like February with cards like that. So definitely, if you're new to this, or if you've been in the hobby for a long time and you're typically someone who holds these cards because you feel like you're more of a collector and you don't necessarily want to try to move out of these for money, and you haven't taken a look at what pricing movements happen on a weekly basis for the last couple of years, I'm telling you to sell these cards now, because basically, like Clark said, I mean, they go down as players either don't make it to the majors, there's prospect fatigue, or there's that adjustment period and they just don't play as well even when they do get called up. So I think like you've got sometimes your lightning in a bottles, like your Paul Skeenses and your Ellie De La Cruz, who obviously Ellie wasn't in this release. He was in 2022 Bowman because he's an international prospect. But nevertheless, when a new Bowman release comes out, especially Bowman Draft, you're going to see pricing plummet after the initial release. So get your singles listed. One other thing you brought up before we get into the single pricing is buying into breaks. I hear breakers say, well, it makes financial sense to do a PYT, a pick your team break, and do multiple of them because it'll increase your chances of getting a particular player or a particular hit for a player more so than buying into their single. Okay, sure, but you're still gambling. As you said, it's still a gamble. So to me, ripping wax and breaking, neither one of those are sports card strategies. They're more of sports card entertainment, which to each his own. It's just not for me. I did rip my box of Bowman Draft, and I mentioned I paid, I think, around $530 for it. Clark, I might be able to piece together like $100, maybe.
Okay.
So it's like, it's annoying to me. I did it because it's something that I do to kind of prove my point, and then, maybe I get lucky. The other thing that I want to talk about before we get into the single pricing, because I think you guys are right. We share a brain on this. You can use this time of year, especially, to go back and say, okay, there's a new release. Everyone's excited about the new release. Let's go where they ain't, which is what I like to say, and go back in time and look at who are some of the guys that's pricing are down, but that maybe their singles prices are about to rise as this upcoming baseball season gets closer. And now we're not gambling. We're just being very strategic on timing the market. But I think I want to ask you one more question that I think I know the answer to, but I want to get your perspective. Some people like to buy this release and keep it sealed and then hold it because they think, oh, XYZ prospects are in this release. This is going to go up in value, sealed, and then I'm going to flip it. What's your perspective on, those kinds of scenarios? How often do you feel like that kind of play works with this release specifically?
Yeah, great question. And generally, I like that strategy a little bit better than just ripping the box open and hoping for a hit or even breaking, because you're gambling. You're still kind of gambling, but you're gambling on more players. You're gambling on the class of that year. And you could have. We already talked about Bazana and Caglione. That's 2 top prospects. And there's Hyung mentioned 5 more that I've never heard of. But they're all young guys, but they could all potentially be really good MLB players. So even if 3 or 4 of them hit, then and 1 or 2 of them do really, really well, then that sealed product will definitely increase in price. So it's a strategy for sure in terms of I don't want to mix up strategies versus gambling, but it is still a gamble, but less of a gamble in my opinion, rather than ripping just one hobby box or entering multiple breaks.
I agree, and I think it takes more patience doing that because to your point, these things are expensive. They're twice what they used to be a few years ago. Yep. The pricing is probably going to continue to increase. If you're someone like Hyung or my co-host Lefty McKee, and then we have a good friend, one of the guys who runs justbaseball.com, Aram Layton, like those guys know the prospects. Yeah. And they go deep into the prospect pool. I could see if you're like that, this could be this release in general could be a fun release to buy sealed and hold because you might think more about the deep prospect pool than everybody else, and that could be fun too. But I agree with you, man. It's like if you really want to make money doing this stuff and stay in the game, which is I think, again, I like to talk about making money, but not just for the money. It's really to stay in the game and to keep it enjoyable. Yeah. I think you got to be buying the singles. So you want to go back in time with me a little bit and talk about some of the cards I pulled here. I'll bring them up, and then we can talk about which ones maybe we think are the best ones to go back and buy out of the guys I pulled up.
Okay.
All right. So I think generally, now this isn't always something that works when you're looking at when you're looking at all the different sports. Generally, the first thing I do when a new release comes out, whether it's this release for baseball, whether it's say Prizm Football, whether it's Prism Basketball, it could even be like an Upper Deck hockey release that has Young Guns in it or something like that. I think that the strategy typically remains the same across all sports for, say, your every person's rookie card release, which would include the RC Shield for football and basketball. It would include the first Bowman. So I think this could potentially be applied to other Bowman releases that have maybe top prospects first on them. Instead of, like Clark and I said, instead of diving in and buying the wax, buying into breaks, and buying the singles of that new release, allow yourself some excitement to go back 1 year. Just first go back 1 year. And so in this case, we could look at guys like Wyatt Langford, Max Clark, and Paul Skeens. Now, what's interesting about these 3 guys is that, and now you could include Walker Jenkins, I believe, in that conversation as well, because he was in that release. So if you feel strongly about talking about him, we can talk about him. But Clark, Langford, and Skeens are obviously in 3 completely different positions going into the 2025 baseball season, being that Langford is going into his 2nd year, Clark has not been called up yet, and Skeens is obviously a massive MLB star. And so they're all in different positions, but generally the card data proves what Clark and I have already been talking about and puts all 3 of these guys in a pretty decent buying position here towards the end of December. So if we look at Langford, for example, we're going to look at just his 2023 Bowman Draft Chrome Refractor first PSA 10. So this is a pop 2490. And when it first came out, first to the market sale was on somebody turned it around quick at PSA because on December 21st, so about a year ago, it sold for $175. Its peak sale was at the end of January 2024 for $217. It stayed close to $200 through March. Then it began to go down after the baseball season started. During the baseball season, it was an average of about an $81 card, but now it's a $51 and $51.55 is the last sale, which was just a couple of days ago. And it's liquid, it sells fairly often. It shouldn't be that hard to find. When you look at, say, Wyatt Langford, being on a Texas Rangers team that won the World Series a couple seasons ago, being that he was a top 5 pick a year ago, and you say, okay, now I think you kind of have to see the pattern and you have to realize, okay, well, those first sales don't count. They're not going to reach that level again, like we just talked about. But when you look at the fact that during the baseball season, this thing actually did sell. I didn't tell you this, but in July it sold for over $100 a few times. In September, late September, it sold for over $100 a few times. This is a $52 card right now. If you can get this card for its most recent average sale price of around $52, do you feel like this is a buy right now? When, using the excitement of, hey, Bowman 2024 draft is coming out, I want to go buy into that. Hold on. Nope. That's a loss. Let's use my excitement and my appetite to buy something to go back and actually make money. How do you feel about this Wyatt Langford play?
I like Wyatt Langford. Yeah. I mean, every player is a case by case kind of thing, but Langford, what I like about him is that he definitely had that top prospect pedigree, and he had the hype, which is why you see the initial prices jump. And of course, when you get out to the big leagues, it's different. And there was an adjustment period for him as well. But you look at his team, the Rangers, hopefully they do better than last year. And it looks like he's going to be a big part of that team. And so all these things kind of coming together. He's going to have playing time. He's going into year 2, which is fine. And I think $50 seems like a good price for top, once a top prospect, now still a good, very good rookie player. In my opinion. So, if you extrapolate that though, like for year 3 and 4, my other co-host on Cards to the Moon, he calls it the lull period. And that's when collectors kind of forget about these top prospects because every year there's new ones. And then your attention is to the next shiny thing. So you got to almost be aware of that timing as well. It's because, there's a scenario where I could see this Wyatt Langford card, unless he's really performing in year 3 or 4 of his career, go down lower than 50 if he's kind of forgotten over, for the next big rookie that's up or being called up. So, if the timing seems right, like if a top rookie or prospect got called up, like at some point last year, doesn't have a full season ahead of him, and then the prices drop accordingly. I think there is a play where you can get him on the low and do a quick flip in season for the next season. But in terms of holding longer than that, there's a lot of factors and variables that you have to consider, and then it could make the price go either way.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. And the other thing, too, about a guy like Langford that doesn't apply to Clark, who we'll talk about in a second, is that because Langford was a rookie last year, he's in a bunch of other Topps releases with rookie cards, right? So his supply now all of a sudden has expanded, and that actually hurts that Bowman Chrome first prospect refractor, even though that's a great card and it's his first card, because there's more Wyatt Langford supply. I think you're right. I think there's that shorter runway. And so, my advice to everybody is if you can get this Wyatt Langford card that we're talking about for that target cost of the most recent comp, and you can get it in an auction, there is probably room on it. It will probably go up as March approaches, but you might want to sell it in March. Regardless of where you are on it, because to Clark's point, if this guy doesn't come out and start playing amazingly well, he could get forgotten about in that lull period, and it could go under 50. So we're running it through our already graded formula at nooffseason.com this week, and you'll probably see it in the rankings there at nooffseason.com and be able to see, okay, well, what do I need to pay for it, and what's my potential upside compared to the other cards. So the next one, Max Clark, he has not been called up yet. Detroit Tiger, top 5 pick. And I don't know. I think maybe he had a little bit more controversy around him than Langford. But, I mean, the Tigers obviously surprised people last year. Yeah. Clark's prices are in a similar situation. His same card, the 2023 Bowman Draft Chrome Refractor First PSA 10. It's a pop almost 1,400, so there's less of them than there are Langford's, but it's still super liquid. You can find it. It came out. Its first to the market sales were very similar to Langford's. Not as expensive, but just up around between $100 and $125. And then now it is a $46 card in December. So again, we talk about December being like buying season. Still got to buy the right card for the right player, but if you can get it for the right price, $46 Max Clark card, probably not going to organically go back up over $100 unless he does something spectacular. But I mean, could it approach, say, $90 to $100 just based on some hype around him leading up to March? Clark, how do you feel about Max Clark?
Yeah, with Max Clark, it's because he hasn't been called up yet. When there starts to become more chatter, more news about Clark being called up, that's probably the best time to sell. And that generally that's generally true of most top prospects and rookies. So he has that advantage over Langford because Langford has obviously been called up already. But with Max Clark, 40. Again, that seems like a good price, and just hold on until whenever you start hearing that the Detroit Tigers need to have they want a new outfielder to get things going, and then that's when to sell. And I mean, like, even look at his teammate Spencer Torkelson. He's kind of a perfect case in point, right? Like, he was a top prospect, and I have like a patch card of his, and it's not worth that much right now. So
let's look at Spencer Torkelson because he's on my list. I mean, you got to go back to 2020 when he was the number 1 overall pick. He came out in 2020 Bowman Draft. His same card, the Chrome Refractor First from 2020 in PSA 10, is a $34 card right now. Eesh. He obviously has not done very well in the major leagues, but at one point, this is a little bit unfair because the sales were in the summer of 2021, which I think the bubble was still popping throughout 2021. It was a $995 card.
Wow, that is insane.
$4 card right now. Yeah. So there's some 5 card guys Instagram reel for you there.
That's coming out next week.
Yeah, but it was even in 2023, it was a $100 card. And right now it's a $34 card. So I am not saying go buy this card, by the way. Because now Torque has a ridiculous amount of cards out. So they're probably a dime a dozen at this point. But I think that proves our point overall, which is like, when this release comes out, yes, it's their first card. Yes, there's a lot of hype around it. But to Hyung's point that you relayed to the audience earlier, not all these guys make it, and even those who do make it, underperform. Do we even want to talk about Jared Kalenic? Do we even want to talk about, some of these other guys that just, Torkelson's, they're in the same sentence. It's like they got called up. They didn't do anything. They got sent back down. Now it's like, well, there's no, okay. So actually, rather than talk about Skeens, let's talk about Jackson Holiday, because that kind of happened to him last year. Yeah. And you brought up something that I think is important that I want everybody to rewind your podcast apps and listen to what Clark said a minute ago. He said, when there is chatter of Max Clark potentially being called up, that is probably a good time to sell. And so what we've done a lot of digging into at nooffseason.com over the last 2 years is, what's the better selling marker? When there's hype and news articles, maybe the guy's in AA, what are their card prices like then versus what are their card prices actually like at the call up? And I think what we've learned is, generally, you want to make a generalization, It's better to sell when there's chatter and when there's hype. Sometimes guys get called up in September and nobody cares because it's football season. I mean, sorry, I know you're not necessarily a big American football guy, but it's football season. Nobody cares. So you get called up in late August, early September. Nobody cares. Maybe you get called up in, May or June and you're playing because there's an injury and then you get a couple hits or you get a home run. Now you see, but I think we thought, a couple of years ago, we thought the call-up is the selling marker. It's really not. It's really more of what you said, which is when there's hype, the card typically, even if the guy goes and wins Rookie of the Year, great. It doesn't necessarily reach, the prices don't necessarily reach what they were when there was hype around him, which is interesting. So let's talk about Jackson Holliday, because last year there was no more hype around any other prospect than Jackson Holliday. And I pulled his 2022 Bowman Draft Sapphire Edition Chrome first.
Okay.
And I think the reason I pulled the Sapphire Edition is because I also want to make the point that Bowman Draft, technically, while there's a lot of hype around it, it gets superseded by other releases sometimes that causes the singles to lose value. So when you have someone like in this case, Jackson Holliday come out with, Sapphire Edition, Chrome first, and that gets graded in a PSA 10. That can outsell the Refractor. Sometimes now they're putting autos for some guys into the Sapphire release, which can supersede a lot of the other base autos that came out of Bowman Draft. So one thing that I think new people or people that are just trying to make money at this for the first time that have even been in the hobby for a while don't necessarily always realize is each new release that comes out after, especially with the MLB debut patches and stuff that are getting put in pro releases. When those, not that everyone's going to get an MLB debut patch, but just the fact that everybody starts to go buy those releases cause an original Bowman Draft release to go down. So while this card isn't out of the release that we set out to talk about, it still follows the same pattern. It was basically like a almost $300 card throughout its entire existence. And now it's a $150 card. And, it dipped at call up basically all the way through his, I guess, quote unquote rookie season. When we look at Jackson Holliday, all of his cards follow this pattern, even his cards from the 2022 Bowman Draft release. Now we're going back 2 years now. How do you feel about him going into his second year? He's in the 2022 Bowman Draft release. Cards like his PSA 10 from the Sapphire Edition all follow the pattern of, okay, $150 card used to be a $250 card during his rookie season. Can cards like this get back to where they were for a guy like Jackson Holliday?
I feel like with Jackson Holliday, he's kind of my weakness. There's no data I have for him that supports how I feel, my gut feeling, but I feel like he's going to be a stud. And I feel like he's a typical case of really adjusting to MLB. Once again, I kind of feel like I'm repeating myself, but he had a really difficult time. And I think his pedigree was like, it's just everyone was talking about how he's the next stud and just the level of expectations, maybe that got to his head as well. He's a young guy, and I think his brother might be drafted number 1 too. So like the Holliday family is, they're very talented. Let's just say that. But Jackson Holliday, the only thing that bugs me about his cards is that because I'm not the only one that feels that way, there are other people that still believe in Jackson Holliday. It's come down, but I feel like if it was any other player, it would have gone down even more. So the bottom is still 150 for a guy that was batting under 200. That's, it should be less than what it is at now, but I think people still believe in him. So I don't know. That could go either way. I'm conflicted on that, because if you have a lot of people still believing in him, there's a chance that it does go up when he starts to actually, hit closer to 250, 300, starts to hit a few bombs. But on the other hand, if he doesn't perform this coming year for a very good Baltimore team, and there's a lot of good players on that Orioles team too, young players, he could get overshadowed as well. He doesn't have that shine that he did have when he was called up and played played as a rookie. So that could be another factor in his star diminishing a little bit if he doesn't perform up to expectations in this coming year. So there's going to be a lot riding on his performance. I still believe in him, but I don't know if I believe in him at the where the prices are right now. I would like to see a bit lower for me to take him off my watch list and actually buy his cards.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Langford and the Max Clark, they in my mind, they don't have to do as much for you to make money on those cards that we talked about. Whereas I think because Holiday still has a lot of that hype and a lot of those expectations that you talked about.
Yeah,
I think he will have to do a bit more, and sometimes that looks different, right? It could be
for sure
a game-winning grand slam. Could be like one play, one phenomenal play.
Yeah,
maybe at the beginning of the season. It could be just a big April, a big March, April, when everyone's hype about baseball, and maybe he bats 325 and has several homers, and but I mean, if he doesn't, now we're talking about it needs to be like a big long hit streak or a bit, he needs to be get hot and make the All-Star team. So yeah. I think that the longer it takes for a player like him to do something, the more he has to do for you to realize any kind of profit on his cards, even if you go raw to grade, because what happens is the PSA 10 upside goes down, it diminishes. So yeah. Now the next guy I want to talk about is Skeens. Skeens is a superstar already. However, I typically caution people against buying into superstars when they're at the height of their popularity. I think one thing Skeens card pricing has for it is that technically it's down in December.
Yeah.
So I pulled his 2023 Bowman Draft base auto. So it's his first chrome auto, base auto in PSA 10. It's a pop 658. So it's actually double the pop of the last holiday card we talked about. But its most recent comp is $1,170 US. Cool. It's sold in November for $1,800 US. It sold in September for $1,800 US, and it sold at the All-Star break. Clark, this is actually my comp. It's sold. I got really lucky. I had two raw to grade. They each got PSA 10s, and I sold them. I listed them both ending when he started in the All-Star game. And so $2,330 US
nice.
is one of my two comps, and that was on that sold on 7/18/2024. So
yeah.
So this card, expensive. I mean, you're gonna pay $1,100 US minimum for this card.
Yeah.
Even in this sort of quote unquote down period in December. Other thing that I want to mention, which you guys do a really good job talking about, and you and I have talked about before, is like sophomore slump kind of a thing. How do you feel about buying into Skeens cards right now? He's got a lot of cards out. I mean, he's printed in every single release now with RC shields ever since he got called up. So what's your take on Skeens?
Yeah, Hyung and I think might differ a little bit on this because we did talk about it on the pod, and for me, I'm still very cautious with pitchers. That's another thing too, and we talk about sophomore slump, and it's much more noticeable when you're on the mound and you're slumping because, all the attention is on the pitcher, right? And injuries, he throws so hard, and he's an incredible pitcher, but health is always an issue with pitchers. So that's another factor. If you ask Hyung, I think he thinks he's generational. So, he could be, and to his point, he's shown every time he's on the mound how dominant he is. And that raises questions of whether, even in the hobby, are pitchers investable again? And I think even you and I talked about this on a previous pod. And it's just one case, though. The sample size is minuscule. So I'm treading with caution still, but I could see how some people might be excited about, the second year of Paul Skeens. And and you already said the other point that I was thinking about. So much Paul Skeens cards out there now. It's just a ton. Like every time I see an auction ending, it's one of his cards are it's always up for auction. So that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna double down on what you just said. I'm gonna go exactly in 100% agreement with you. Like I would fade if we're talking about Paul Skeens cards in general. They're probably all gonna follow a similar pattern to this card. I would fade this card for sure. I think you're going to find, again, like I said, a similar pattern. If you look at data from any Skeens card, you're probably going to see that its 365-day average is actually less than its most recent comp. And the reason why is because, and this is an anomaly, Skeens is kind of an anomaly because usually it's the other way around, as we've just kind of had several case studies of that. But it's because Skeens had like the perfect storm happen. He got called up. He has the girlfriend situation on social media.
Yeah.
Fanatics is doing stuff with his girlfriend, amplifying that stuff. Skeens is like this massive human being who used to hit as well several college days ago. And now he's throwing, into the three figures, as you pointed out. And you've got him being the starter in the All-Star game and just dominating. I think he almost threw a no-hitter, or he did throw a no-hitter, but it wasn't a complete game. I mean, he had the perfect storm happen. Not only did he have the hype coming off the college career, not only did he have like the social media presence with the girlfriend and everything, not only did he have the call-up, but he performed at this level that most pitchers will never perform at as long as their entire careers. They're still striving. Like 99.9% of pitchers will never and have never performed and achieved what he achieved in like his first 6 months as a pro baseball player.
Yeah.
There's no way that this is going to happen again. I mean, like even if he does continue to perform that way, isn't it built into his pricing at that point? Now, I know you guys have talked about Shohei, who's only gone up and to the right. So maybe Skeens like threads the needle and does that as well. But to me, it's like the chances of that are so slim because could it happen on the diamond? Yes. Is the hobby's reaction to it going to be the same? I think that's a whole other thing. So to me, I would probably fade Paul Skeens, and I mean for that reason, I picked Shohei Ohtani over him, as you know, in like the baseball player that I'm investing in 2025.
Yeah. Will
I be right on Ohtani? Well, I still got to buy the right cards. I got to get him for the right price. I got to sell them at the right time. All those things. But I'm just with you on Skeens. So maybe we need to get Hyung on and have him
counterpoint,
state his case even more. So.
Counterpoint. And I'll add one thing about Skeens too. And the reason why he's still in the news was that he was up for awards as well. It just extended his timeline in terms of him being in the spotlight even after the season. And I mean, the expectation is going to be huge. And I thought that about Shohei, but Shohei kind of exceeded those expectations. That's why he is where he's at now. Right? He's like, he's not going to pitch this year because he had Tommy John, and then that's going to go down for sure. And then he does a 50-50 season. Like, it's got to be like that. Like, that's the level of expectation we have for Paul Skeens right now.
Good point. That's exactly right. That is exactly why Shohei continued to rise, because like he did the unthinkable again in a completely different way. And I mean, of course, I guess we should probably just end this this conversation, even though it has nothing to do with Bowman Draft. First of all, let's wrap on, I think the only way to make money on Bowman Draft is to go back in time and buy cards like the Wyatt Langford, like the Max Clark. It's not always going to be exactly those cards, but I want people to follow that same thought pattern of go back and find a card of a guy that doesn't have to do a lot. Not a whole lot has to happen for the value. Maybe it's like Max Clark and there's just call-up hype. Maybe it's like Langford where he's already in the bigs. There's still a lot of hype around him. He has that high draft capital, but he hasn't like really had his coming out party yet, and his cards are cheap. I would not buy into breaks. I would not buy and rip wax. I would not buy sealed wax and hold it. You get slaughtered on all three of those things.
Yeah.
And then I would be, I would be very, very careful at even trying to be first to the market. You can only be first to the market on cards that are either super low serial numbered, which are hard to get anyway, or you can only be first to the market in like a wave. And then after that wave of like a 1 month period of time, it's down. I mean, the prices just go down. So,
yeah.
But let's talk about Shohei since we ended with him.
Let's do it.
Okay. I think we hit on this already once when we talked a few weeks ago, but my contention in sort of the end of 2023, so about a year ago, we knew Shohei was going to sign with a new team. We knew Shohei had undergone Tommy John surgery for the second time, and he wasn't going to pitch in 2024, but that he was going to hit. So my contention was when he comes back and pitches in 2025, that there's a likely probability. Back a year ago, there was a likely probability that was going to be the case. Now, I didn't know he was going to go do this 50-50 thing either, and that his prices would basically continue to rise. But my thought was, wow, December of 2024 is going to be an amazing time to buy into Shohei because then he's going to be pitching again a few months later. Yeah. What are your thoughts, without looking at any of the data, what are your thoughts in terms of just what is it going to take to move Shohei's needle now that we know all the context around where he is as a World Series champion and everything like that?
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys that he's accomplished so much. It doesn't, unless he just falls off the wagon, or he just gets a career-ending injury. I think there's just people are just going to buy into his cards. He's at that level now. He's kind of proven what he, had to prove, and I think everything is everything's like gravy. It's like we have another baseball friend, and he was saying, we thought that him not pitching was going to impact his prices, but it's just we come to realize that it doesn't matter anymore. Just the way he's, just the even beyond baseball. Like there's a lot of fans for Shohei now, and he's become the spokesperson. Like he has that level also, and that kind of credibility. So that's what I mean when I say he's kind of this unicorn, both on and off the field, where everything kind of came together. He's done, exceedingly well, and I think going into the next season, it's just, I don't know, I'm just looking for any card to get into right now. But, in terms of the pricing itself, I think a few weeks ago we talked about when's a good time to actually buy Shohei. And if you look at the data, and you'll get into it, I'm sure, but there's always seems to be a dipping point right around November, December, right? And but the thing with Shohei cards is that it dips, but it establishes a new low. It doesn't go, the following year hasn't gone below that November. And the year before that hasn't gone below that November. So it keeps going up in waves. And I think that's kind of the pattern we're seeing right now with Ohtani cards. So yeah, you're not going to see it go down where it was November 2022 or even 2023. But if you're going to buy into his card, I would think that around this time is probably the best time. And you just hope that he does what he does. And then it'll keep going up.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do, my man. I mean, look, we're almost at Christmas and New Year's, and when we know what the big sporting events are, we know that it's, people start to pay attention to the NBA a little bit more on, Christmas Day and past Christmas Day. Not quite to the extent that they pay attention to college football and pro football and the NFL playoffs. But I mean, other than the baseball diehards who are like winter meetings and the hot stove stuff and all that,
right?
Generally, it's going to be a buying pocket for Shohei, like you said. And I like what you said too, because like establishing a new floor is different than typically what happens. Typically, what happens is you can buy in on a guy if you're picking the right player and you're looking at the data the right way. You can buy in on a guy, and you can somewhat expect to see the pattern that happened in the past repeat itself, at least to an extent where it's going to go back up, and then it's going to go down again, and then it's going to go up, and then it's going to go down again throughout the year. Whereas with Shohei, it might go down again, but if you're saying that historical data is basically validating that it doesn't ever go down past where it was, then in theory that means, hey, let's buy in again. And I think that the selling strategy needs to be talked about as well with Shohei, because to me, he's entered this level of like Michael Jordan, basically. And that's not hyperbole to be like, well, he's the Michael Jordan of baseball. What I'm saying specifically is with Michael Jordan cards, the way to make money on Michael Jordan cards that I've experienced is you basically buy in at a low point and then you list it in a buy it now. And you just wait until somebody buys it, whether it takes 3 weeks or whether it takes 3 months, because it's a Michael Jordan card. Somebody's going to buy it, and somebody's going to buy it. Not any Michael Jordan card, everybody, but it's got to be one of the desirable ones. Same thing with Shohei.
Exactly.
I think that's what I mean when I say he's entered the Michael Jordan level, where I think if I'm actually going to make profit on Shohei cards, what I have to do is first do what you're saying. Buy into some of the right cards over the next few weeks. Then I need to just list them in buy it nows and just wait for somebody to buy them at the price that would make me profit essentially after the eBay fees. So, I mean, look, everybody out there in the audience that knows me, do you think I can be patient enough to do that? That's going to be the challenge. But I think as I'm buying the Shohei card, I need to only pay for it and click into that next process of the purchasing decision if I'm going to commit to holding it until somebody buys it for the price that I need to sell it for to make money. So
no, I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love especially the Michael Jordan analogy, because it wasn't that long ago where the star rookie, the 84 star rookie, it just randomly has these run-ups every once in a while. And then it comes back down, and that's, to your point, that's when you should probably buy it. But then it's almost inevitable that it's going to go back up for whatever reason. I don't know what the triggers are, but when it does, that's a great selling point. And then if you want to get back into it, it'll inevitably come back down. It's just kind of this cycle.
I haven't figured out the triggers on the Jordan stuff either. I just know that, like, if you're willing to be patient enough, someone will buy it for what you have it listed for. And it could be like, hey, it could be as finicky with someone like Jordan as like, hey, somebody just had money that day that they wanted to spend and they bought it. But it does work because, I mean, it even works with his 86 Fleer sticker. And like, I mean, and like it works in different grades too, like 86 Fleer sticker PSA 8. And, you know, there's all types of like little Michael Jordan things. And I feel like Shohei's at the point where you'd probably do that with a lot of his cards. I mean, if you're going like 2018 Topps Update PSA 10, you're not going to have as much upside as if you go with some of his bigger cards. But you could still even probably pull it off with some of his lower tier cards. I know you said you're lazy, you don't like lower tier cards because they're more work.
But there's a play. Even I know there's a play there.
Yeah, I'm messing with you. All right, hey man, anything else you want to report on for the audience here? Like any purchases you've made, things you're looking at buying on your watch list that you want to throw out there? What are you excited about these days?
I feel like we already talked a lot about, because I had a question for you even before we start recording, and you already mentioned being first to market, and I'm more curious about the timing. So I was ripping, while you're ripping 2024 Bowman Draft, I was ripping a lot of 2024 Topps Chrome Update, going after the MLB debut patches, which obviously I didn't hit any of those cards, but I bought a hobby box, and I was lucky enough to get one off the Topps website, so for a couple $100. And then at a local Walmart, I was able to pick up 2 mega boxes. So I was in about $350 altogether. And
that's not bad.
And the rip was looking really bad. Like I was getting nothing. And I think when I was doing the math in my head, it was like a 2-3% return on investment. And then I hit an LE image variation card, which is, I think, last sold for $70 on eBay just the other day. And the first to market, they were selling for $130. So my question was, and we can end off with this, but at what point do and this is like a month after Bowman or Topps Chrome Update came out, At what point do you list it just still raw and it's still early because you haven't seen any graded cards yet? Or for a guy like Ellie, for decent hits, when do you consider, I'm going to just grade this and hopefully I'll be part of that wave where I'm first to market for PSA 10s?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it depends on the condition. Speed matters a lot because to your point, even with the raw sales, maybe it's gone down from like over 100 now to more like 70 just in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yep.
So when you think about grading, speed matters the same way. I'm more of a grader of cards than I am seller of raw cards. I think it depends on the condition. So if I'm pulling that Ellie and I think it's going to gem, I think that the upside of being first to the market with a PSA 10 of a card like that, or maybe a Skeens, like a similar card for whoever, maybe I think it's probably just those guys, right? But if for either of those guys, I would grade it if I think there's a chance that it could gem. I would just do the normal 45 business day turnaround time, and I think you would be in that wave of being first to the market, not literally first to the market, but if you're in that first wave and you can maybe ride the first initial comps to be close to 90% or even 110, you could be lucky and be like 105 or 110% of that first comp, or even 90% of that first comp. I think you got more upside in that play than you do selling it raw. If you look at it raw and you're like, there's flaws here and that sort of thing, I think it's probably better to sell it right away, because I don't think a 9 is going to give you that upside. I would also say for a lesser player, and I think this is probably one of the bigger mistakes that I see people make, is they get excited about maybe a second tier player out of a new release. And the endorphins in their brain have taken over and told them somehow that it's a good idea to grade this card. Maybe they had it in their heads of like, there's going to be upside in this release for me. I'm going to get one of the top, a big card from the top guy, and I'm going to grade it and try to have this, 5-figure card or 4-figure card out of it. And then they get a second tier guy, and then their brains talk themselves into, and their hearts talk themselves into, well, this guy could be this, could be that. By the time they grade that card and get it back, nobody cares about that release. Nobody cares about that guy because it's a second tier guy. And now they're in a situation where that graded card, and there's no comps of it. So nobody wants to be the first one to dip their toe in that water and take that risk. So I think if it's a second tier guy, selling it raw makes more sense than grading it, because you're leaving meat on the bone for the people who maybe see upside in grading it, or maybe just want to participate in buying a single from that new. You're capitalizing on the hype of that new release versus trying to create something that's not there. Whereas if you got a guy like Ellie or like Skeens from that release, and it's a card like an image variation, or something that's not just the base card, then I think if it's condition dependent. So let me know what you do. It's not necessarily an easy decision, but it's also not necessarily a life and death decision. You know what I mean? Like, I think that you put $20 into grading a card, and you're probably not gonna get raked over the coals for it if you sell it later and it's a 10, and you maybe you could have made more net profit selling it raw, but at the end of the day, you still do about how you should have done on it. I think the real risk obviously is like, get anything that's not a 10 these days just is not going to sell well, which sucks. I mean, we all hate that, but it is what it is. And so I think that's why it's condition dependent.
No, I appreciate that answer, and you already convinced me. It looks pretty good, so I think I'm going to submit it for grading, and then next time we're on, once I get the grade back, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that was useful.
It too, and I think that's fun. To me, I love the anticipation of grade reveal. So that's awesome. Good decision, man. I hope it gems, and I can't wait to hear how it does.
No, thanks for the advice. Appreciate that.
No problem. I mean, if there's one thing I'm good at, I'll just tell you what I think you should do, right or wrong. I could be wrong, but I'll tell you what I think, and it'll be based on some kind of experience or data or something. So
It's all good.
But I appreciate your advice too. I mean, good analysis on all these baseball questions. Baseball is like my third sport, as you know, so it's good to get your analysis on all this.
Yeah, it was fun. Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to the audience. I mean, we've gotten good feedback from each of our audiences on
for sure.
On these collabs. Everybody go check out Cards to the Moon, who's familiar with sports card strategy. And if you're a Cards to the Moon listener, I promise that there will be some value if you come check out the Sports Card Strategy Show.
Definitely check him out.
I appreciate you, Clark. Have a good one, man.
You too.
Thanks to Clark Kim of Cards to the Moon podcast and 5 Card Guys for being my co-host, my guest co-host on today's episode of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Don't worry, everybody. Lefty McKee's just out for the holidays. He'll be back in close to 2025, actually. He'll be back on December 30th when we do our new show format for 2025, kicking off on December 30th. Can't wait for that. We've got a few more shows until then, though. Don't worry. Happy holidays, everybody. And I'll check you out soon. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. If you enjoyed the content on today's show, there's plenty more waiting for you at nooffseason.com. Just go to nooffseason.com right now and get a free 30-day trial. You get our formula-based sports card rankings, sports card school, inventory tracker, the ability to grade with us, and the premium podcast where we answer an unlimited amount of your questions. Check it out right now at nooffseason.com. For everyone at nooffseason.com, I'm Paul Hickey. Thanks again for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day.